In this video, we do some long overdue maintenance on our Espar D2 Airtronic heater, as well as some other upgrades to the heating system after traveling from the Arctic Ocean of North America to the southern tip of South America in Ushuaia. Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're back in beautiful Mendoza, Argentina, on our way north after making it to the southernmost tip of South America in Ushuaia. Now we're being chased by the weather in the southern hemisphere. I know most of our viewers are northern hemisphere people, and you're coming into springtime now. Here we're coming into winter, and things are starting to cool off again, and it's high time we do some maintenance on our heaters. Longtime viewers will know that when we built our truck nearly 10 years ago, we installed the Espar D2 Airtronic heater, and it lives inside our fender here. It's a coolant heater, so it heats the liquid, in this case our engine coolant, and gets our engine up to operating temperature in about 20 minutes so that it's all nice and warm and ready to roll when we're ready to roll. Also makes hard starts in Canada when it's negative 40 degrees possible, because such an engine is not thrilled about starting at those temperatures. It has worked flawlessly. You hit the button, it fires up, it sounds like a rocket engine, and heats up our coolant, and that works perfectly. But it only needs to run for about 20 minutes a day at the most, and then it just turns off. And so we've had zero issues with that one. In the back, we have our Espar D2, which is a Airtronic heater. It's a 2 kilowatt air heater, and it lives in here underneath our kitchen sink, and it too has worked flawlessly. We've got probably 10,000 hours or more on there, and it works really well, even at high elevation in the high 5,000 meter Andes in the Huascarán National Park in Peru. No problems. It does cough and sputter a little bit, but it always fires up eventually. And it does pop up a maintenance required message on the screen from time to time, although it usually comes at a very inconvenient time. And so I just clear the error and get on with life, and it still keeps working. And like I said, I think I've done that 5 times 2,000 hours runtime, and so it's way overdue for some maintenance, and that's what we're doing in this video. While we're at it, I'd like to do a few little creature comfort upgrades. When I first installed this heater, I just ran the exhaust out here in the fender well, and then it shoots down towards the other side of the truck, under the truck, and for the most part that works fine. It fires up and wafts away. But after maintenance is required for the umpteenth time, it sort of plumes smoke here for the first minute trying to start up, and then if we're going in and out of the truck during that time, we might get some smoke wafting in there. So I'd like to extend our exhaust out the back of the truck. The second upgrade I want to do is to install a 3-way valve so that I can select between our original diesel tank, which is where it currently pulls the fuel from, and this steel jerry can, which we carry on our back storage rack. Normally it just carried diesel, but lately I've been carrying kerosene. And so to have a valve that I can switch between diesel and kerosene will be really nice, because when we were in Bolivia, just south of the Bolivian salt flats, there's the Laguna route. And last year when we were there, we had a sticky experience because we had contraband diesel because of diesel shortages in Bolivia, and just as luck would have it, when we were there, it was the coldest cold snap in decades, and we were sitting in minus 15 or 20 degree weather with 40 or 50 kilometer an hour winds, and our low quality diesel gelled up in the lines, and our heaters wouldn't run and our engine wouldn't start, and we were stuck there for 2 days trying to solve that problem. Which, side story, I took this jerry can and hiked it to some steam geysers that are geothermally geysering, stuffed that in the hot steam until it was too hot to hold anymore, dumped that in the tank, and that got us going so that we could get out of that tough spot. So that's what's inspired this idea. Installing this 3-way valve was actually a suggestion of one of our top tier channel members, John S. Said, why don't you just run a 3-way valve and run some kerosene, which would have been a great idea if I could have got kerosene while we were in Bolivia. but there was a fuel shortage and they weren't allowed to sell to foreigners at that time, and so I wouldn't have been able to get kerosene anyway, but now I have some, and I have the three-way valve that I've been carrying around for 6 months or more, so it's time to get that installed too. Now, the exhaust modifications are really straightforward, and in fact I finished that off yesterday. I had a aluminum extrusion that I used to use for our LTE antennas that were directional on a little motorized mast, and I no longer use it because we got Starlink, and so that aluminum extrusion has just been tagging along, and so I just tagged it up in here behind this other frame rail and modified the exhaust just to go down and up into that aluminum tube, and then it shoots out the back out this beautiful dual exhaust looking apparatus, sending all the exhaust gas out the back the way God intended. Next, I'm going to pull out the Airtronic D2 and go through some routine maintenance, for which there's probably a service manual, which I have completely ignored. If you haven't seen our video where I installed this, don't bother. It's old and terrible. Alright, so here you can see the exhaust modifications already. I moved the muffler from up inside the frame rail to right here. This area doesn't get as caked with dirt and mud as I thought it would originally, so I'm not so worried about this. Removing the heater is as simple as you can imagine. Pull off the two ducts. This is the air intake silencer. It runs down into the frame rail to an air muffler. And then there's just 4 10mm bolts. And lastly, the diesel fuel line just pulls off of that little nipple. And that's all there is to it outside. Inside, under the sink, we just need to disconnect the power cable. And then just disconnect the power. Now, in fact, I could probably get away just pulling the glow plug and installing the new atomizer screen that lets the diesel burn more cleanly and makes startup a lot easier. But because I've got 5 times the runtime on here than is recommended between service intervals, I'm going to open it up, clean out the burn chamber completely. I've got the new gaskets, so I should be able to do all this fairly properly in a Overlander oasis as we are. So opening these up is really simple. Pull the little screen cap on the air intake, pop the 2 little fingers here, and the whole cover just pops off. Underneath this little boot is where the glow plug and that screen lives. To get that off, you need to get a Torx bit and pull off the engine computer. Alright, so that's the meat and potatoes extracted from the housing. Nice looking unit. Next, I'm going to remove the glow plug to get access to the atomizer screen. Get it out of there. Just pull the rubber boot. Install the slotted socket that's included with the glow plug kit. Find your screwdriver. That is seized in there good. Not a big surprise, that was carboned up really bad. Although the glow plug itself doesn't look horrendous. Now the next step is to dig out the little atomizer screen that lives inside beneath the glow plug, but I imagine it's caked full, and I'm going to open it up and clean it anyway. So the next step for me is opening up these Torx screws here on the end. So I thought I'd have to smash this thing open, but it's actually surprisingly clean in there, which is good. And it didn't save me anything because, as you can see in here, I still need to dig that glow plug out from inside this little cavity. All right, so I finally got that screen out. I ended up just pulling 3 screws in here and pulling this burn chamber out, and that gave me a little better access with the pointy pliers there. There's not much left to inspect because I mutilated it, but it is clearly all gummed up. And then that also revealed the inside of the burn chamber, which is caked full of soot and maybe even ash in the bottom there. So I'm going to take a few minutes, use some carburetor cleaner, and clean this out really good. Hopefully I have the replacement gasket for this one, which has left the chat. Back with you in just a jiffy. All right, so I've spent a few minutes cleaning the inside of the burn chamber out with a little bit of carb cleaner and a nylon brush, and the housings, just gave them a dusting, washed the outside where all the heat fins are. This is where the air flows over, heating the air. So I got all the dust and detritus out of there. Everything looks nice and clean. Now it's time for a reassembly, which is pretty straightforward. First, I'll install what I'm going to call the atomizer screen. I'm not sure it atomizes exactly, but have the original OEM atomizer screen, and you simply use this tool, align the line on the tool with the spot welds on the atomizer screen, and then press that into the burn chamber, which this is the core of the burn chamber. The fuel comes in this line here, goes through the screen and hits the glow plug to get it going, and then once it's running, of course, the glow plug turns off. And it's important, they say, that these spot welds on the atomizer screen face away from the inlet of the diesel tube. Now, thankfully, the rebuild kit I got has the OEM gasket also for the burn chamber. That was the one that disintegrated when we opened it up. It looks like it only fits in there the one way. Always a nice design. And then the burn chamber sits on top of that, with the gasket sealing it to the housing thusly. And then these 3 screws. And then I'll just give her 3 clicks with the baby Ugga Dugga. Well, that one got 4. Then we can put the glow plug in. I suspect my original glow plug is just fine, but I'm going to put in the new one just for fun. It threads in, you can see, into that same chamber where the atomizer screen lives. Use this fancy tool to gently turn her in, tangling all the wires in the process. And then screwdriver through the cross hole for the last click. And then the little rubber booty. I also have the original OEM gasket for the intake side, although mine was in perfect serviceable condition. I'm going to use the new one just 'cause. Alright, now the hardest part of this whole thing, getting it apart anyway, was getting this unit out of here. Although, with the back cap removed, it's a lot easier. So, disregard my previous statement. Then we just put the computador back on there. Hook up the wires first. These connectors, although they look symmetrical, are actually keyed, so they only fit one way, thankfully. Their gland fits in there. This clicks onto there. And lastly, the little retaining screw that holds the brain box on there. Click. Then the top housing clicks on. Then the top housing clicks on. Click. Click. Then the housing on this backside. Now it originally had these bits of gasket in there as a spacer. Don't quite know why, but I'm going to put them back. And it all clicks on. And then the intake cap has a little bit of a screen. That's just spins on there. And then the gasket, which seals it up from the inside of the vehicle to the outside. Ready to reinstall. Next, I just need to pop this in under the sink, under the false floor here. I just need to push these two intake and exhaust ducts out through the fender well. And then just hook up the power connector. And lastly, just need to tighten up the 4 bolts on the outside. 3 clicks each. And lastly, I'm going to give it a little bit of a fizz to camouflage all that shiny chrome inside the fender well. Oh wow. Now that the heater's all reinstalled, we'll use the SIM card ejector tool, push the little button through the tiny hole in the front of the thermostat, and then immediately hold down the power button. That will put it into maintenance mode. Then it will do the memory test, make sure it can communicate with the ECU inside the heater. That's all okay. Diagnose now, no. Runtime hours currently 1037. And then to clear, you would press yes, which is actually true this time. Confirm reset, yes. Runtime is now 0. There's some other settings here like low voltage shutdown, and which is set to 11.4 volts. We're not going to change any of that. And now it's ready to go. All right, next we'll turn our attention to the auxiliary fuel tank modifications I want to do. Since I'm carrying around this steel jerry can anyway, we're going to be using that. I have been struggling a little bit with this outlet seal leaking on me, and so I found these 5-pack of replacement jerry can gaskets on the Amazons. So I got one of those. That's simple enough. Pry the old one out of there. Still looks fine, but next we'll turn our attention to the dip tube. I previously installed this NPT bulkhead fitting here. I just cut off an air chuck fitting actually with a bung, and I did that when we were in Bolivia because any of you who have used a jerry can designed for the people of California will know that they suck. You can't get the air in, and thus you can't get the fuel out. And so I put this in here so that I can just open this plug and shotgun the fuel out of the tube. That worked really, really well. It does leak a little bit, although I didn't really put much effort into sealing it, as I will this time. And then for the pickup, I tried really hard to find a copper or brass or some kind of tube that I could dip into the tank with. But our good friend Danny in Santiago found this on the back of a refrigerator and cut it off, and it was all coiled up and bent, but I managed to straighten it out. And then I have a plug, a bung with the square cap on the end, and so then I drilled 2 4mm holes and soldered those in there thusly. So one obviously goes down to the bottom of the tank, and the second is the air vent. And then to install it, I'm just going to use this little ampule of Loctite 545 to seal that up real good. Now with that out of the way, I can install the three-way valve. Great idea, courtesy channel member John S. Thank you very much. So this is basically a selector valve. If I turn it in this position, the fluid will flow in the right side and out the bottom. If I turn it the other way, it'll flow in the left side and out the bottom. So then I'll just use these brass fittings. One nipple in this side, one nipple in this side, and a coupler in the bottom. Now this needs to get installed up under our frame rails, and there's no room to shoot, and it's not that interesting, I don't think. From there, I need to install this 4mm line, which is actually the leftover original Eberspacher fuel cable, fuel line, and that will run from our fuel rack on the back down and underneath the truck. So let's get under there and see what I can show you. Alright, underneath the truck now, let me show you what we've done here. This is the T, which originally came from the fuel tank at the back, T'd here up to our Espar D2 pump, and then this line goes to the Espar D5 pump. And so all I needed to do was break these brass fittings apart, screw the nipple out of the T, or the barb fitting out of the T, and then insert the stainless steel two-way ball valve. Now the fuel comes in the tank here, and the kerosene comes in from its tank here, and they go out to the T, to the two respective pumps. In this position, it's running kerosene. This position, diesel from the original fuel tank at the back. Expertly installed with some zip ties. A little bit of a banjo twined solution here at the moment, but it'll do. Now I just need to zip tie this the rest of the way to the back. So the fuel line just comes out of the frame rail in here, and I've just zip tied it to this support because it's solid, and then up inside this hollow tube, which goes all the way up to our fuel tank carrier up there. And after a quick fuel tank 2-part epoxy putty repair to the inlet nozzle and a bit of a cleaning and a fizz job of new paint, our wavy on jerry can is looking as good as new, ready to be thrown back up in our AT Overland fuel can holder up here on our spare tire rack. Audio check.
Audio check.
So here it is installed. I added some extra foam on the bottom so it's in there nice and snug. This thing's really tight. And the cable the tube just runs down the frame as I showed. Silicone tubing is a coupler here. I will need to think of something for the vent, but that's a problem for tomorrow's Jason. Welcome back, everyone. It's Jason from 2 days from now. It's been a couple of really cold nights, near freezing here near Mendoza, Argentina. And as you can see, the heater is working just fine. It fires up on the first 2 or 3 pulses of that pump. I can hear the torch whirring in there already. We are back on diesel now, so it does smoke just a little bit more than when we had it on the kerosene, but night and day difference from what it was last week when it was pluming out plumes of smoke. The exhaust modifications work perfectly. You can barely see it right now, but it's nice to have it coming out the back rather than by our doorway there. So a big thank you to John S. for the motivation and the push to put in that two-way valve. I know I kept calling it a three-way. It's a three-port two-way valve, but forgive the slip-up. Big thank you to all of our top-tier channel members: Furious George, Cecil Neville, East of Somewhere, Seam, Austin Space, John S., Aaron Isaac, Frank Brantz, and Gary Radon. It's the support of these fine folks that lets us gallivant around glaciers, pester penguins and fluster flamingos in the cold, and come back to a nice warm camper. To everyone else, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.